Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we back. It's League on Lock. Eric and Mark here with you guys, continuing the LCS preview for 2021 spring, going through the player rankings. We got bot lanes today, and unprecedented in the history of League of Legends eSports. We're going to do the impossible and try and rank coaching staffs. I know it's impossible. We don't know fully what's going on behind the scenes, but we're going to give it our best effort.
Hey, that's what the preseason is for, taking a shot in the dark for these type of things. Feeling very excited about getting to break down the ADCs and supports. We've got some fresh blood players and new faces and new places. This is going to be a good time to break down what you're looking at for 2022 in the LCS.
And I know me, looking at some of these teams, it always takes me a couple tries to see the guy in the new jersey or the new logo beside his name. It's, well, no, he should have this logo. But it's all a little confusing. But we're starting with those 80 carries, and we go 10-6, the kings of the bot lane. And we touched on some guys, Fake God and Kumo in the top lane, who had a little hype early on, and we were excited about them. What about Neo, Mark? On his first split on Dignitas, we were like, this guy's the future star, the 80 carry. He kind of came up with Tactical and Johnson, and much like Dignitas usually does, he's tapered off quite a bit.
Yeah, we have not seen the same level of success that we did see initially during that first burst with Dignitas, and why we were so getting the hype train rolling for someone like Neo and what he was doing in the bottom lane. Since then, I think he's absolutely been passed by pretty much everybody else that we have in that same role in the LCS right now. And it's going to have to take a turnaround to get back onto that type of hype train, looking to reinvent, I think, his level for the LCS.
Luger even is a spot ahead of him making his LCS debut, but don't sleep on him because him and Poom absolutely dominated in the academy scene for 100 Thieves together, and I think we'll probably be talking about him higher than 9 as the season goes on, but you got to prove yourself on that LCS bigger stage compared to academy. So as is the theme, CLG, we got to say it every time we mention him, low expectations. You can overperform. Luger slots right in to that category. Johnson, a guy we also talked about, who also on Dig had this incredible amount of hype, but now he's paired back with Aframu, so he's going to refine that magic, right?
That's the secret sauce. That's why you find someone like Johnson a little bit higher up. He might have been right alongside his former Dignitas buddy in Neo, talking about them and their struggles since that. But Aframu is back, and he is going to be back alongside Johnson, hopefully reuniting, resparking some of that synergy that they did have with Dignitas.
And ahead of them was one of the guys I always get confused with logos. We're talking Wild Turtle. Immortals, he's been there before. CLG, that didn't make any sense. I want to just put FlyQuest for him, but no, it is Wild Turtle returning to Immortals for the first time since 2016 when they went nearly undefeated, and pairing him up with Destiny. I don't think it's going to be the strong point for Immortals in 2022, but Wild Turtle, for a guy who's basically the longest standing LCS player now, he's rarely shown signs of being washed up.
It's going to go 0 to 100 real quick is how I feel about that lane. When things are going right, when they're snowballing it, they're picking up the damage, picking up the kills, it's going to look really good with those two popping off. When it's not, that's not going to be a pretty thing to look into that lane on that side for Immortals. But yes, alongside Destiny, Wild Turtle is someone that has rarely disappointed to an extreme degree, and I think that is going to be something that we see again with Immortals, is that he's going to find that level that doesn't disappoint.
And ahead of him is a guy who people love to say they're disappointed with, love to blame things on. It's TSM Lost. Listen, maybe there's a few moments in playoff games or high-stakes games for TSM where you can highlight a misplay from him, but overall, he was not really an issue for TSM and got way too much flack, if you're asking me.
I completely agree with that, but at the same time, I almost don't even care about his time with TSM last year. I care about this year and the next step for someone like Lost, and I want to see growth from him from this past year, not just individually, but from what he gained alongside Sword Art and how he can use that with Ole, someone also making a bit of a return to the scene alongside him with the Golden Guardians. That is going to be somewhere where for the Golden Guardians to have that success, we've talked about it with Licorice and Abadage, someone like Lost stepping up and being an upper tier, top 5 ADC can be a big difference maker for this Golden Guardians team that I don't think has ever really had a level of performance like that from the bot lane consistently, because the last time that they did, it was FBI and Huhi, and as soon as they turned that corner to really put those level of performances,
see you later.
They were shipped and sold out of there.
And then they won an LCS title, so congrats to Golden Guardians for that one. But yeah, Lost and Ole, I think both are going to have a little bit of chip on their shoulders, feeling like they need to prove themselves a little bit more. So I'm excited to see that pairing match up for the Guardians. Top 5 AD carries, the replacement for Lost, Tactical. Now, he has not nearly fallen off the initial days like guys like Neo and Johnson. He's really just cosplayed early days Doublelift, where the mechanics are obviously there. He has the talent. There's just some brain fart moments where you Tristana W into a bush with no vision and die and cost the game. Just those little things.
And it's not even, a finger slip or just very poor decision making. It is, as you said, just almost complete like brain lapses and whoopsies is the way that I would describe what you're getting. Playing a Tristana like a Malphite situation from Tactical, which makes it easy to forget. And I want to say this, it's important not to forget just how good and talented someone like Tactical is, what he has shown us in the positive category, and why you've been excited about him as a young player alongside Core JJ with Team Liquid. That's all real. That's all legitimate, and that still carries over to now with TSM and how he can move forward away from his veteran partner in Core JJ and try to continue to improve and work out some of those whoopsie moments would be a big one for TSM.
And they're just, unfortunately, TSM fans, they love to rag on somebody, and a lot of the time it is that AD carry, whoever's been slotted in there. But I believe in Tactical on TSM. Berserker in at number 4. Maybe Sven's going to be starting here. I think if it's Sven as well, you probably put in that 4th spot. Berserker's obviously a lot harder to rank. We're going off of purely LCK Challenger, where they had a dominant spring, did he, on T1, won the whole thing, and then didn't look as good in summer. Again, I'm just, the level of competition, I'm honestly putting some like challenger scrimming within, being in the T1 organization. You almost rank it equal or higher than the LCS. It's insane, I know.
Yeah, and I've seen, a small handful of Berserker throughout the year, keeping an eye on the T1 Challenger squad and what was going on there, and absolutely impressed with what Berserker has been able to provide as far as that VOD review. But he still falls in that category of just either not enough or not enough at a high enough level type of situation, and examples that we're going to have to wait for that lock-in tournament. And if he is there and if he's giving us those games and examples, which I hope that Cloud9 would, that's where I think you can start to make some more educated opinions and guesses and predictions on what type of performance we could see from someone like Berserker. But right now, I would say that potential, and even for this year, immediate impact is still pretty high for someone like him.
Just need games. Just need more games of him with Cloud9 playing on the stage. Danny and FBI, I think no question, were the best AD carries throughout the split. FBI and Huhi were dominating most lane matchups like they did on the Golden Guardians. Danny was the shining star in team fights throughout the majority of the year for Evil Geniuses. But despite how good they both looked, probably the easiest number 1 of any of the positions coming into this year is Hans Sama for AD carries. No question.
Much love to those two, but it is all about Hans coming over from the LEC Rogues, big superstar in the bottom lane, makes the cash in on Team Liquid, joins that big old all North American lineup for Team.
Yeah, Team Liquid Europe is they're the EU squad, the LEC of the top 3 in North America.
Yes, NALEC is what we'll call it, the Team Liquid squad over here, and Hans Sama leading that reinvention of the team with his star power. Unbelievably excited about what someone like Hans can do paired alongside, as we've talked many times on this list, Core JJ, that veteran, what he can provide to a team. Extremely excited about Hans and what his potential is for this 2022 season.
He's fresh off styling on Dom 1, FPX, and Cloud9 individually. I think it's a pretty safe bet to put this dude number 1 among AD carries heading into 2022. When we swap to the partners of the AD carries and look at the supports for the upcoming year, it's actually probably the most veteran heavy of all the positions. There's really only 2 rookies that you're going to be talking about, and even then, are they really rookies? It's kind of hard to judge, but we start with those 10 to 6, and as you see, a lot of veteran guys. Destiny has been around for a while. I think you and I may be a little surprised that he's back in that starting support role for Immortals, but I guess they feel like there was enough good moments for him to stay put.
Yeah, he certainly provided a higher level of play than he did the past year, is how I would look at what Destiny did, and at various moments was a relatively consistent member and contributing member for this Immortals team. But it is one of those ones where when I saw the changes coming through and everything else happening, Power of Evil, Wild Turtle coming in, I thought there was going to be another domino to fall in the bottom lane, but that is not the case. I think Destiny can provide a high enough level for Immortals and alongside Wild Turtle. But when you're looking at everybody else, I would be hard pushed to rank them any higher than where we've got them right now.
The next 2, Ole and Biofrost, if we were talking about, 2018, you'd be saying Biofrost and Ole at 8 and 9. What do you talk? These guys are top 3 supports in the league.
A long time away from
not 2018.
2019, very much not. A lot has changed around the world, and especially a lot has changed in Riot Games and League of Legends. Ole and Biofrost, more than good to see them coming back into the scene, and especially for both of them, I think pretty deserved to come back into the scene. Both of them have been, away from the main spotlight of the LCS stage, but have been working on the craft, working on what they can do, and to see them come into these opportunities that they've got with these 2 squads bringing them in, I think it's okay.
Yeah, and obviously they're going to have that absolute leadership veteran status at the highest level. Both been to Worlds multiple times, even with different organizations for Ole. So individual performances aside, what they add to a team is obviously going to be huge, especially with some younger players around. Ahead of them, the veteran, right there with Wild Turtle, the only guy who's probably played more games in the LCS, is Afromu, and there were still good moments. This guy is not washed up. I know there's been moments on Dignitas, even towards at the end of 100 Thieves. That was, 2 full years ago now we're talking about, that he was supposed to be washed up then. But again, there's no better leader that you can have for your team in the LCS, and there's a reason the power of friendship for CLG started with Afromu being on there, because he is just a genuinely great dude.
Well, throw me into that category. Put me in jail for that one, for saying that I thought Afromu was done. I thought we had seen the very best, the peak performances. I don't think that's true individually, and especially when you talk about that impact that he can have as that support player. And that's one of those aspects I think it's so hard to gauge on a support, is how much better they make their partner in that bottom lane, in that duo lane. Afromu is someone that I think that is one of his big intangibles, is that he has a way to, whether it's through synergy, camaraderie, or just in-game knowledge and skill, he finds a way to be better with his duo partner. And that's something that I think still provides a difference to him than other supports, and just how good he is at that.
And despite all this leadership, veteran quality that those 3 are bringing, you got Poom at 6 ahead of these guys, and I feel like the peak levels for Ole, Bio, and Afro, it's still on the downward trajectory. They can still be playing at a very high level, but Poom that ceiling is an unknown of how high it can reach. I know people are still, the last memory of him to them is a couple games with 100 Thieves in the LCS where he was not good. He had a whole year in Academy to help develop, and him and Luger were, again, the premier bot lane in Academy.
I wouldn't blame you at all if you hadn't seen his time in Academy, or didn't want to pay attention to him specifically after that time with 100 Thieves. But you better be willing to give this player another opportunity, another look, because what he did throughout that year, as you said, there is no way you couldn't justify this type of promotion, this type of next step for someone like Poom, and I'm extremely excited that we get to see it for 2022.
It's even harder to bounce back when you have that kind of crushing defeat and I don't want to say embarrassment, but disappointment for himself on that big stage. So happy to see him back, and you're absolutely right, well deserved. Now we get into the top 5 and 5 and 4. Much like Berserker and Kia Duo for TSM, they're so hard to rank. Winsome and Isles, not even sure which one's going to be getting the majority of starts for Cloud9. Isles is obviously a guy we've already seen get some starts on the higher level, been in the academy for Cloud9. And then Shen Yi, we actually saw him play some games for FPX. I think it was summer or spring. It was 2021 either way. So we've already seen him on the Rift. And again, you talk about potential ceiling for both of or all three of these guys, and it's absolutely top 5 material.
Well, it was the summer split, and it was time when Crisp was having to step back from the main stage for FPX. Shen Yi stepped right in, and there was no missing a beat for him with the FPX. To be fair, kind of hard to miss a beat with the way that FPX was playing in summer. Easy to forget given what we saw at the World Championship. But back in that summer split, things were ripping and roaring. Shen Yi steps into the lineup, and absolutely, it all continued. And so I have a lot of faith with him and what he can do in this LCS opportunity alongside Tactical. Winsome and Isle, that is more of a question mark for me, because it is less about Isle and what we have seen from him. As you said, the question mark for me is about Winsome, because I still need to see and research more about this guy. He falls into even maybe more so a category than Berserker and Kaido of what I need to see at a lock-in tournament to get some more in knowledge in the bank about him and what he can provide. Isles is the one that I have seen that we can talk about, and is, as you've mentioned, someone that is ready for that next step, that next upper level of performance, of competition, and he's going to get it with Cloud9.
And we'll see if it's going to be, Sven and Isles together, Winsome and Berserker subbing out as a kind of bot lane interchangeable, or if they'll be swapping AD carries and supports. We just don't know what's going on in that Cloud9 roster. The top 3, I'm going to call them even the big 3 of supports in NA. They were all there last year, and they were probably the top 3 supports from last year, running it back. Huhi on the same squad with 100 Thieves. We got Vulcan swapping over to EG. I think still probably consensus number 2 support. And much like Hansama as AD carry, you're absolutely insane if you're putting anybody but Core JJ number 1.
I love these 3 leading the charge for our supports, because you're talking about Huhi and what he brings to that role is his role swap from the mid lane, that outlook of roaming around and picking things off, the Aurelian Soul Master. You can see glimpses of that as he's moving around the map on all these supports and what he wants to get done and how proactive he is for this 100 Thieves. And then we move on, and my goodness, you're talking about the other 2, and Vulcan, the major acquisition for Evil Genius, is the one that I think a lot of people would say was carrying a bigger weight, or more of the load and responsibility in that bottom lane for successes in Cloud9. And then what else is there to talk about when you're talking about the ultimate level of support, not just in game, out of game, for the region, whatever. It's Captain America, Core JJ, leading the top of the list.
And I think even if you did a top 3 bot lanes, it'd probably be these 3. Again, maybe you put FBI and Huhi in that number 2 spot ahead of what's going to be Vulcan and Danny, but AD carry support combined, even separate, these are your top 3.
Yeah, I actually would do that. I think that's at the start of the year at the very least. Now, I'm going to give Danny an opportunity and Vulcan to warm things up and get it going. But I like that. And as far as, again, still keeping it in the support list, we're breaking it down the way we are with Huhi, Vulcan, and Core JJ. But bringing in those bottom lanes, bringing in those ADCs, just put those lists together and you'll see that those duos are right there at the top in both of them.
Last ranking to do today, and it's a tricky one. I got to preface it. We're doing the LCS coaching staff rankings. This is basically impossible to do. We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't even know what the defined role for a lot of these coaches going in. But it's preseason. It's a little fun to just kind of throw things at it. So we're going 10-1 for the coaching staffs. And as you start in that 10-6, it's first a trio of NA names that you're probably somewhat familiar with. CLG's Think Card, who was a player many years ago. It's just any staff within Counter Logic Gaming I'm not fully comfortable with yet. Invert has been around with FlyQuest for a long time. Also now on Immortals for this split. And then Enero, probably the most well-known of those 3. Obviously huge in getting in-housing done for the Golden Guardians and the LCS as a whole. And I think the biggest claim to fame for me is A, signing FBI, and B, recognizing that you should build a team around him.
He's also someone that I would say, before we had LS coming through, someone that was willing to be a little bit more experimental, to take some risks in North America. That's something that I saw from Anero. You mentioned those three. They've been very consistent members of coaching staffs in North America, and I think all of them can have their own avenues of positivity and things they add through. The big one for me, though, is absolutely Anero. And you look at how, all of his friendships within the scene. Some people might go, oh, too much about, being buddy type of situation. That's not how I'm reading it. This is just simply about a dude who's a good dude that people like being around, like being friends with him, easy to be around, and build those type of relationships and chemistry that you want to work together with. That's a big one for me. And especially when you've got that as a coach, a big plus.
Yeah, and you're talking about roster building, pick ban, and just overseeing the overall running of a team. There's a lot of things that can go into a coaching role. Enatron and Sharks ahead of them, 7-6. Enatron going over to Dignitas. He won 2 TCL titles in the last couple of years and was also a runner-up finish. So lots of experience in a minor region, which almost I count more than some of the LCS stuff some people have done. And then Sharks was with Fly Academy last year. He actually won EU Masters with AGO Rogue. So both of these guys bringing a winning culture over to their respective organizations. Top 5 now. You throw Chawi in for TSM. There's still some question marks as to how that's going to work, but he is a very experienced League of Legends mind.
An extremely experienced League of Legends mind, and one that will come through and be important in helping the TSM members from the LDL come through and be integrated with this roster, with this organization even better. That's a big one that I'm looking with Chawi, an extra level of responsibility that he's going to have to bring to TSM and find another level of success for them.
4, you got Gihoto, who I know times LCS doesn't have the greatest track record, but he did have good moments on Origin in the LEC. And I think seeing him with a star-studded roster, you were really going to recognize, okay, maybe this guy does have a lot more impact, as being a coach on the Rift. And then the top 3, we put LS in at 3. I mean, again, incredibly difficult to rank because he's never been a full head coach in the role capacity that he is with Cloud9.
Personal bias and hype, I would put LS at number 1, but that's not what we're here for. With this list, we got to be reasonable and somewhat professional in this thing, and that's why you got to have LS starting out at number 3 and what you can do. A lot of the stuff, whether you're a believer or not, we're going to see it put to the test. It's going to be put onto the Rift, and that's the big thing, that LS is going to stand behind his beliefs, his ideologies 100%. And not to really pick a side, but if you've been paying any type of attention to what he talks about, what he rants about, what he raves about going on wrong or right in the scene, usually it takes a couple of months or maybe a year later, but you see it reflected in the pro stage and in the games. And so now I want to see if those type of ranting and raving a whole year in advance for Cloud9 before the rest of the scene turns around and says, oh, wait a minute, that's actually a good idea. I want to see Cloud9 with that insider information from the get-go.
Maybe take a couple of weeks instead of, a full year for that to be implemented. But you still can't put him ahead of established guys like Reaper and Peter Dunn, whether it's developing young talent, the pick and ban, the interesting strategies. These guys have, already built winning cultures on multiple organizations and have years of experience in that head coaching role, being a leader for their respective squads. So Reaper 1, Peter Dunn number 2 on this list. Might be a recurring thing to try and rank some of these coaches as the seasons go on, but for preseason, that's it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.